Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. You're joining me rather early on Sunday morning. It is 20 to 7 in the morning. We're going through another big heat wave in the UK. Not as, but it's specifically the extreme heat warning is across England and into Wales, so it's not the whole of the UK, but we're feeling the heat. It's not as extreme as previous heat wave where London and such got to 40 degrees, but it's still rather high. And so because of that, I'm recording this early in the morning with my hair still soaking wet because I've just had a shower. I'm during the heat wave and such. I'm not blow drying my hair. I'm just letting the air dry itself. And I've got every single window wide open to try and let in some of this cool air before the heat really hits. So if you hear noises like cars going by or aeroplanes, sorry about that, but in order for me to film this, I need to be able to breathe. Um, so I've been away for the past couple of weeks. It's been very hectic at work. We've had this massive heat wave again, which has meant that I've been rather lethargic and not wanting to read. And so, yeah, I'm so looking forward for tomorrow when this heat wave is going to go down. We're going to have some rain, hopefully. But yeah, we've got this drought that's going on at the moment as well. And yeah, there's so much going on right now. So no wonder it's taken me 2 weeks to read the book I am here to review. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say that I was hoping that the 5 books that I picked I would have finished before the new Cormoran Strike book comes out, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the next book that I have picked. I'm then going to have a break and from my list of 5 and read the new Cormoran Strike book, and then I'm going to go back to list of 5, which was the trilogy of To All the Boys I Loved Before. So just so you're aware, so you're going to get The Forgotten Garden next, then the new Cormoran Strike book, then the trilogy of To All the Boys I Loved Before. Okay, so right now that I've said that, let's go into the book I'm here to review, which is Tash Hearts Tolstoy by Kathryn Ormsbee. I got this because it was a book that was coming out the same year that I read War and Peace, I believe it was, which was quite a while ago. If you've been following my channel, it was quite a while ago, as you may remember. And so yeah, I got this because I was like, oh, it's about a character who really loves Tolstoy. I really love Tolstoy at the minute, and I just thought it was a really interesting idea, so I bought it. Never got around to reading it. Now I have. So Tash Hearts Tolstoy is about a girl called Natasha, or Tash as she goes by, and she loves Tolstoy. And she has a YouTube web series which she makes with her friends. She's like writer, producer, directs, all that kind of background stuff. And it's a modern day version of Anna Karenina, and it's got quite a small fan base. She's just doing it for the fun of it. And then one day, a very well known blogger on Instagram who likes finding like period drama stuff, that she follows and she really respects, suddenly shouts out her drama on YouTube, and she goes from like hundreds of subscribers to 85,000 overnight. And she's like, what the hell? And it's about the impact it has on her life, the pressures that she then feels, and also her dealing with her life in general that's going on. So there's a lot going on in this book. It was very, very easy to read. I'd only read like 35 pages. I thought it was about 50 pages. No, it was about 35 pages before yesterday morning. And I was like, right, I've got a day at home. I'm just gonna, try to keep the house as cool as possible. I'm just gonna sit and I'm gonna read and just see how much this book I get through. I got through the entire book. So, it's an easy read. It was, and I have to say, I was very, very impressed by it. First of all, I want to shout out the amount of representation in this book. It was so good. Now, representation on various different levels. First of all, asexuality. So Tash defines herself as a romantic asexual, and by that, what it means is that she does have crushes and such, and when she does have crushes and that, they are on men. She's not immune to any kind of romantic possible links to people, but the prospect of going on a date and kissing and sex and stuff like that, she has issue with and she doesn't want any involvement with. So because of that, she defines herself as a romantic asexual. If you research asexuality, there are different definitions for different aspects of asexuality. It's not just one definition, and the fact that we have this girl who is open with her friends about it, who loves drama, she loves art and such, and she is a standard teenager, is so wonderful to see, because asexuality previously kind of depicted, or the main depictions of asexuality tend to be ones where you get like your Sherlock Holmes or your Sheldon Coopers before Amy came along. I really like Sheldon Cooper. That thing of being completely shut off from anything to do with relationships. It's far more complex than that. There are some people who define themselves as asexual who are like that. They just don't want any kind of interaction with that. And then you have people who define themselves as asexual who are like Tash, who are going, okay, I do have crushes, and that I'm not adverse to the concept of being in a relationship. It's just the stuff within the relationship that I struggle with, and there's got to be, if I were to be in a relationship with someone, there's got to be a lot of communication, there's got to be a lot of understanding, there's got to be a lot of discussion on limits and compromises and such. And I'm willing to do that. I just need to find the person who'd be willing to do that in a relationship with me. So yeah, it's highly complex thing, and the open and frank discussions that happen about asexuality in this book, and having Tash be this wonderful, loving, warm individual, and also just a normal teenager, it was wonderful to see. Now, other representation. I loved the fact the cultures and foods and such that are celebrated in this book. Now, Tash's family originate from her father's side from Prague, so they're Czech, and so it was her grandparents moved from Prague to America around the time of the Cold War because of a job opportunity. It was actually, they got out just before everything went down, and so they started this new life. They had their son, and now their son has had Tash and her sister, and so yeah, we have a Czech family living in America, and I loved all the foods that they talked about, so that they eat and things that they do through the year, and the way that they refer to each other, nicknames that they have for each other. That was really wonderful to have in this book. And I was thinking about it, and even though there have been representations of various cultures in America previously that I have read, and also like in films and theatre and all that kind of stuff, I can't think of an instance where I have seen representation of Czech people. So it was like, oh, that's absolutely brilliant. I loved that. In addition to that, Tash's mum is from New Zealand. She had immigrated to America, and so there's a lot of about the New Zealand culture, and that was absolutely wonderful, and see how these cultures combine, or in some cases clash with each other. Another thing about representation in their family is that Tash herself and her mum practice Buddhism. And I'm like, what? So whenever they have meals, the dad is the cook of the family. He cooks meat for himself and Tash's sister, Claudie, and there's always a vegetarian version for Tash and her mum. So you have this constant like clashes and combinations of these cultures and also religion. And I loved reading the things, wow, when Tash gets overwhelmed, she uses meditation from her religion in order to calm herself down. And I loved that, how she used it to help with her anxieties. And as somebody who suffers from anxiety, I'm like, I get how she's using this to bring herself down. I use ASMR and such instead of religion, so I'm not a religious person. But yeah, I thought it was wonderful having the Czech culture, New Zealand culture, and Buddhism all merged together as our main family unit. Wonderful, wonderful. And also, obviously, the asexuality element as well. Absolutely wonderful. There are also two storylines in this book which usually never, ever have I seen in a young adult fiction book. I'm going to say what they are. So this is a slight spoiler, but I'm not explaining who the characters who are affected by these or anything. So there we go. So the two storylines are a pregnancy later in life, and someone who's diagnosed with prostate cancer. And first of all, a later in life pregnancy is something that just doesn't happen unless it's a like Victorian-esque novel, because of lack of things to prevent that from happening. Contraception, that's the word. Sorry, the word fell out of my head. I'm blaming the heat. And for the cancer, it's not often that you get prostate cancer. You might get other cancers that come up, but not that one. And the psychological effect that it has on multiple levels of family and friends, and the support that they, as well as the person who has it, needs. And those are two minor stories in this book, and it's like, that's insane. I loved that every time I turned a page, I didn't know what I was expecting to find. There were some things that were a bit predictable, and yeah, you should never meet your heroes is a key thing that was rather predictable for me. But other bits, the bulk of it, I didn't know what was going to happen at any point, and I really liked that. Also, it felt so genuine, so down to earth, so true. And it as somebody who does YouTube, obviously I'm a teeny tiny child. I kind of feel a bit like Tash in that regard, in that I am a speck of dust that nobody in regards to the full range of YouTube and the millions of subscribers and all that, I am a speck of dust that nobody really pays attention to. But I like that. I don't want millions of subscribers kind of thing. I'm happy and content the way I am, the way my YouTube channel is. If it grows, then yay, that's great. But I'm not going to change who I am and everything in order to focus on numbers rather than who I am as a person and the things that I believe in and saying the truth about how I feel about books. So yeah, reading this book and looking at things from that perspective, that I totally get where Tash is coming from in various things. Maybe that's why I latched onto this book so quickly, was that I totally understood from that perspective. But there are other perspectives about life that I latched onto as well with her. And I love the fact that she's obsessed with period dramas, especially the 1995 version of Pride and Prejudice. Um, but yeah, I just, I love the fact that this is a young adult fiction book that is so grounded in reality that it feels so genuinely real. It's not clearly, you know how some young adult fiction books are very, not formulaic, but you know how you can predict everything that's going to happen, and then it's kind of like everything's like sunshine and rainbows and it's got a bit of a glow over it, the whole read. This didn't have that, and I really, really appreciated that. I think sometimes you need books like these that are more grounded in reality in order to go, life is life, and sometimes it can be really shit. It can be really, really shit. But it's the way that you respond to things that show your true character, and you're going to slip up and you're going to learn from things, and some lessons are going to take longer than others. But in the end, what really matters is to being true to yourself and not letting others define who you are or what you should be. And yeah, I really loved that was the message from this book. And it's okay to be confused. It's okay to know who you are at a young age, as well as being confused. It's okay to feel off balance sometimes. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to keep focused on something. Just do what you need to do in order to get through the day. And even if that means having having a long cry or watching a movie, if that's all the energy you have for the day, that's all the energy you have. But it's a day. Take a day and see what the next day brings. And yeah, I love the ending. I really, really love the ending. I thought it was a wonderful way of going, this is what life is now, and let's start the next chapter. And it really made me smile at the end, for sure. So, what other aspects can I talk about? Okay, characterizations and such. I thought they were very well done. There were some characters I would have loved to spend a bit more time with, but this is written from first person perspective of Tash. So if she doesn't spend time with them, we don't get to spend time with them. So, that's a shame, but it's the way it is. It's the way it is. I did, as I said, the way in which various complex things, especially around asexuality and such, are explored. And I really want to applaud Kathryn for the way that she wrote that. There are different people with different opinions, different perspectives on certain matters. And I totally understood where they were coming from. And sometimes it was a lack of education on the subject. Sometimes it was just a case of, this is how I was raised in my family. I was raised to believe this, so this is what I believe. And yeah, and she never at one time said, you are wrong if you have this perspective. She goes, okay, these are kind of the different aspects of it. Let's talk about it. And multiple times, characters go off and research it themselves. So the fact that Kathryn is encouraging that to her audience as well, and going, look, you can look into this. There are resources out there on the internet that can help you with this, is wonderful. She's encouraging the audience to look into it themselves. And I'm not just talking about asexuality. There's also things like, the Buddhism, various different things to do with like I said, the food and the cultures and the clashes and such that happen within this book. But the key thing is that everyone just loves each other and supports each other and is so wonderful to each other. And as I said, yes, life gets complicated and can be a bit shit sometimes, but it is what life is. And as long as you have love and support, you're okay. You're going to be okay. So, and there is a really important chapter in this book that I just want to say thank you, Kathryn, for writing, especially, is that Tash has such a love for Tolstoy that she always talks about him in these wonderful manners. And then right near the end of the book, she says, right, I need to tell you some truths about Tolstoy. And there's a whole chapter dedicated to the life of him, the issues that he had with his wife, the things that mean that he's not that great a person. And that is so important, especially with what has happened in recent years. And I'm going to bring up the J.K. Rowling trans debate that happened. Now, when that happened, there were so many, and I am not kidding you, so many videos that were put on YouTube saying, cleaning out my bookcase of problematic writers and such on YouTube by booktubers, that you couldn't escape from them if you're a booktube fan. It was fucking ridiculous. And the amount of people that were going, right, well, JK has said this, she's transphobic, I'm getting rid of all of her books. Some other author said this or did this, I'm getting rid of all their books, and leaving this pristine side of their bookcases and screens and such completely clear. And I was thinking, okay, right, you want to play this cancel culture game? All right. What about your Edgar Allan Poes? And if they, turned around and went, well, it's a classic. He's an amazing writer and such. But he did marry his 13-year-old cousin when he was 30. Why are you cancelling this author for something that they said, which was actually about standing up for the rights of cis women, but you're not cancelling Edgar Allan Poe for doing that? That's a bit of a double standard, don't you think? It was just like, I got so frustrated with those videos. I had to unsubscribe from people and such, because I couldn't deal with that. And isn't it so interesting now that everything has calmed down and more discussions have happened to do with the trans community and such, that people, and especially critics, journalists, who completely ripped JK apart and said that she should be cancelled and she, all of these horrible things towards her, have now turned around and agreed with what she said. It's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. It's crazy sometimes, the cancel culture related stuff that we've gone through, and those kind of aspects are also covered in this book to do with Tolstoy. And but I love the fact that throughout the book, Tash has had this big poster of Tolstoy on her wall. She talks to him all the time. She praises the life out of him, and at the end, near the end, she goes, "Okay, let's get grounded in reality here. Tolstoy was a bit of a shit to his wife," and she talks about it and says, look, the shiny facade of a person can be the most prominent thing that we stare at, that we long for, because it's the thing that's thrown in our face when the reality is behind, and we don't look at the reality. But sometimes we do. Sometimes you should do, just to get a perspective. Now, even though she does that, she doesn't turn her back on him. She just goes, I think I need a bit of a break from him for a bit. Whereas now, as I said, with like the example of what happened with JK, we're automatically cancelling people out and going, I don't want to go there, no. You know, get rid of them, burn their books, all of this lot. And now a little bit of time later, all those people, or the bulk of those people who attacked her, are now on her side. So isn't it interesting the way the world turns? But anyway, enough about that. But I just wanted to give an example of how perspectives are reflected in this book, just as, you know, various things like asexuality is complex and shown from multiple sides, cultures are complex and shown from multiple sides, religion is complex and shown from multiple sides. Right, you know, the key writer in this book, Tolstoy, is flipped from perspective as well. And Kathryn wasn't afraid to do that. And I loved her for doing that in this book. I was going to do reading, but I'm like 25 minutes in, so I'm not going to do one now. But yeah, I thought this was quite a little gem of a book. I really enjoyed it, and it makes me smile. So yeah, thank you, Kathryn, for writing such a wonderful open book about asexuality, religion, culture, and the pressures of being a teenager, plus YouTube stardom and various nasty comments from people on the internet who doesn't even know you. Just thank you for writing this book. I really enjoyed it. So, my usual questions. Would I read this again? Yeah, I definitely would. I really enjoyed it. It was very well put together, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yeah, I definitely would. Anyone, regardless. It's one of those young adult fiction books where I definitely, obviously, for young adults, but you know, the adults out there that I know that might like books that are, you know, easy to read but got quite depth in it with mixture of elements and such. Yeah, definitely, I'd recommend this to them. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to like my dad or someone who's really into like Stephen King, you know, I can't know. Would I read any more of Kathryn's books? Yeah, I didn't think I definitely would. This is actually the first book of Kathryn's that I've read, so I need to look into her other books. So yeah, and once again, thank you, Kathryn, for writing such a lovely book with such representation in it. It was wonderful to read, so thank you. So those are my thoughts on Tash Hearts Tolstoy. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments box below, or give me thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to you, I'll let you decide. I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. I read one of Kate's books before I moved out of my mum and dad's house, which will be 8 years in November, and I was like, I can't remember exactly the title of that one, but I think it was one of her more recent ones at the time. And my mum said, you should read The Forgotten Garden. My sister lent this to me, I think probably about 4 years ago, because obviously because of COVID and that, we haven't been able to see each other or anything. And I still haven't read it, but I am now. So I went back to my thoughts on The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. And as I said in my intro, that I'm going to read the Common Strike book next after that, and then I'll read the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy. So yeah, there we go, all done. And yeah, 7:10 in the morning. How hot is it? It's 21 degrees in my living room. So, let's see what today brings. I think we're going to hit about 35 today. Oh, it's going to be hot. But then tomorrow, everything starts cooling down. So just got to get through today. But anyway, I will see you guys when I'm done reading The Forgotten Garden. All right then, bye.